Hey guys, welcome back to the Python tutorial series. In this video, we're going to be looking at conditional statements. So we're going to be looking at if-else loops, we're going to be looking at while loops, and we're going to be looking at for loops. So first, let's jump into if statements. So the first thing I want to do is define two variables. We'll say x equals 10 and y equals 20. Okay, so now that we have those two variables, let's use them to write an if statement. So I'm just going to type out the basic syntax of an if statement. So we'll say if x, we'll say greater than y, print x is greater than y. So this if statement here, we have a couple parts. First, with the keyword if, which tells the compiler that this is an if statement. Then we have the expression here. So this is the expression that we are testing. So if this is true, then do whatever's in here. So notice the colon and then the indentation. Remember, Python is an indentation-based language. So if it jumps into here, if this condition is true, it will print x is greater than y. So if we look up here, we see x is 10 and y is 20. So if we run this, you'll see we get nothing. And that is because x is less than y, so it just skips this altogether. Now, if we were to change this and say if x is less than y, print this. Now when we run this, there we go. We get output as expected. Now let's switch it back to that first case. Now, what if we want something to happen if this is false? Well, for that, we can use the else statement. The else statement can be appended onto any if statement, and this is kind of like the default. So if whatever this condition is, if that is false, it'll jump to this else. So when we get into the else, let's print, so if x is greater than y, it'll go here. So if it goes to the else, that means x is less than y. So we'll print x is less than y. Now when we run this, we get x is less than y because it checks this, it's not greater than, so go to the else. Now we also have what's called elif. So say we want to check if x is greater than y, x is less than y, or if x is equal to y. That's three conditions. So we can say if x is greater than y, do this, that's good. Elif x is less than y, do this. Else, so this would mean that they're equal to each other, print x and y are equal. Perfect. Now let's run that. There we go. So we get the same output as before. Now what if we change x to be 20? So now they're both equal. So when it comes into this if statement, it will check this. That'll be false. So it jumps to the elif. This is also false. Then it will jump to the else. Let's test that out. There we go. We get x and y are equal. Now, right here, so far we only used x greater than y and x is less than y. But we can use any conditional expression that we want. So, for example, we can say if x is not equal to y, that works. We can use if x is equal to y. We can use less than or equal to. We can use greater than or equal to. We can use and, say if x and y. So we can say if x and y are equal to 20, then we want to print x and y are 20. Now if we run this, we get x and y are 20 because x and y are both 20. Now if we go back up here, switch y to 10, and we say if x and y equals 20, and we run that, Now you see x and y are equal. So what happened here is both of these are not equal to 20, so it skips this. Then it goes to, is x less than y? Well, x is 20, y is 10, so no, it's not. So then it jumped into the else statement. Perfect. And then we have the same for or as well. If x or y is equal to 20, so this should be true, so it will jump to this statement right here. X or y are 20. Let's run that to see if we get it. Perfect, we do. So say we have this if-else statement right here. We have if x and y are equal to 20, we don't want to do anything. Else, if they're not both equal to 20, print this. Well, as you see, we have a syntax error here. So you can actually have nothing inside the loop. So we can use the keyword pass to just tell the compiler that we don't want to do anything if this is true. So if x and y are both equal to 20, just do nothing. Else, do this. So let's change them both to 20 again. And when we run this, there we go. Nothing happens because it sees the keyword pass and just does nothing. Now again, if this were back to 10, then it would default to the else statement, which is printing that. And there we go. That's what we get. Okay, so next we have the nested if loop. So say x is now an age, so we'll rename that variable age, right? We have age equals 20. Well, we can say if age greater than 5, print age is greater than 5. But what if we want something to be checked inside of here? So if the age is greater than 5, we want to check if, say, the age is greater than 10. Well, we can do that by nesting another if loop inside. So we can say if age is greater than 10, print age is greater than 10. And we can keep doing this as long as we want. We can go one more time. Let's say is age greater than 20. So if age greater than 20, print age is greater than 20. So we'll come in here and we'll say if age is greater than 5, that's true, print this. Then check if age is greater than 10. If that's true, print this. And then check if age is greater than 20 and print this. So when we run this, we should see these first two lines being printed. There we go. Age is greater than 5. Age is greater than 10. And if we want, we can follow this up with an else. So we can put an else for each one actually, but we'll just put one for the first one. So we'll say else print, and if it fails and the age is not greater than 5, well, age is less than or equal to 5. If we change the age to 5, we should see that else. Okay, so that is all for if loops. Now let's look at while loops. So while loops will basically continue to execute as long as a condition is true. So let's say, for example, we have a Boolean variable called go, and we'll set that to true. Next, we're going to set another variable, I. We'll set that equal to 0. And we'll say, while go, so while true, while go is equal to true, do something. So while go is true, let's increment I by 1 with our shorthand here. Let's put print, and then here we're gonna use some string formatting. So I'm gonna go like this, and that'll be I. So I, the number I is below 10. You'll see why 10 in a second. And then here I can say dot format, and I can pass an I. So this right here is a placeholder for I is below 10. And then down here, I'm going to say if I is equal to 10, so we have our if statement inside the while loop, go equals false. So let's take a look at this loop again. So we have while go, So while true, increment I by 1, so now I is equal to 1, print I is below 10, so this will print 1 is below 10, then it will check is I equal to 10. If it is, it'll say go to false. If it's not, it will jump back to the top of the loop. So now I will be 2, it'll keep going, 3, 4, all the way to 10. Now when I is 10, it will say if 10 is equal to 10, that is true. It will set go to false, which will then terminate the loop. Now let's run that. There we go, perfect. So we see 1 is below 10, 2 is below 10, all the way to 10 is below 10, and then it terminates. Okay, now we're going to look at the break statement. So the break statement stops the loop even if the while condition hasn't been met yet. So for example, let's say we have a variable I, and we'll set that equal to 0. We'll do a while loop. We'll say while I is less than 5, print I. Now, here we'll say if I is equal to 2, we're going to break. And then after this, we will increment I by 1, using a shorthand I plus or equal to 1. So this loop by itself, if we didn't have this statement in here right here, so if this were gone, this would simply print out 0 to 4, right? But by adding this, if I is equal to 0, break, or I is equal to 2, break, when I is equal to 2, it will break out of this while loop. So it will stop executing the while loop. So this will then print 0, 1, and 2. So let's run that. There we go. So we also have the continue statement. So I'm going to move this print after this if block. And now if we switch break with continue, instead of exiting the while loop after I is equal to 2, it will simply break out of this if statement and jump back into the while loop. So if I is equal to 2, instead of printing out I, it will hit continue, skip this, and go back. So to make this work, we also need to move this to increment I up top here. Now if we print this out, we should see 1 to 5, or 1 to 4 printed out, but not 2. There we go. 1, skip 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we also have else with while loops. So we could say I equals 0 while I is less than 5, print I, increment I by 1. After that is finished, we can say else, and then we can say print I is 5 or above. Run this. Oops. And there you go. We get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I is 5 or above. So it runs the while loop, and then after it finishes, it does this. And if we said while I is greater than 5, it would just skip all of this and jump into the else. Just like that. So that's it for while loops. Now the last of the 3 loops is a for loop. So I'm going to declare a list of programming languages. Call this code language equals. We'll say Java, Python, C#, and I don't know, CSS. Now say we want to print each element in this list out. Well, for that we can use a for loop. We can say for language, or for lang, in code lang, so the list, print language. So we are declaring this variable lang as an element in the list. We're looping through the entire list and printing out that element. So let's run this. And there we go. We get each element of the list printed out. In this right here, if you're coming from, say, Java or another programming language, you're used to seeing a for loop as for. Then we have three parts, right? We have the starter, so start I equals 0, the condition, so I is less than, in this case, codeling dot length, and then the increment amount. So this is typical in other languages, and you see in Python it's made a lot simpler. Now say we wanted to print out each letter of a string literal. Well, we can do that by saying for letter in, we can say anything, so we'll say JavaScript, for letter in JavaScript, print letter. And when we run this, we should get each letter. There we go. Now we also have break and continue in for loops. So let's make a list of names. We'll say Ben, go Bob, go Joe, and we'll go, I don't know, Chris. And just like we did with the programming languages, we can say for name in names, that's the list, and we can print out each name. Well, let's use the break statement. So say we jump below here, and we say if name equals Joe, break. So this break statement prints Joe and then exits the loop. Because the break, remember, exits out of the main loop. So it'll exit the for loop. It'll just stop. So when we run this, we should get Ben, Bob, and then Joe printed. And remember, since the if statement in the break is after the print, it will print this one. Let's run that. There we go. Ben, Bob, Joe, and then it exits and does not print Chris. We're going to move the print statement after this condition. We'll print that, run this again. Now we see that it does not print Joe. It just prints Ben and Bob. But again, it exits after this and does not print Chris. Say we just wanted to exclude Joe, but after we want to keep going. Well, for that, we can use the continue keyword. And remember, the continue keyword will exit this iteration of the for loop, but it'll jump back into it after. So it will print Ben, it will print Bob, it will check if name's equal to Joe, continue, so it will say, okay, it is, let's loop back around, skipping this, and move on to the next element, which is Chris. So this will skip Joe and move on. So if we run this, like I said, we'd expect Ben, Bob, skip Joe, Chris. There we go, Ben, Bob, Chris. Next up we have range. So I talked a little bit about this in one of my earlier Python videos, but we can use range to quickly generate a list of numbers. So we can say for x in range 100, and we say print x. So this will print the numbers 0 through 99. Let's run that. There we go, 99. And if we scroll all the way up here, you can see it is indeed starting at 0. So that's the first way we can use range. But range also takes in another parameter if we want. So range can take in a start value, say 5, and an end value, say 10. So this will start at 5 and print all the way up to 9, because it's one less than this final value. So let's clear this and then print. There we go. We get 5 to 9. And then the last thing we can do with range is specify the increment value. So the default, as we can see, is 1. 5 plus 1 is 6 plus 1 is 7. But we can specify that and we can say 5. And then let's change this to 20. So this will increment from 5 to 20 by 5. Let's clear this and run. There we go. We get 5, 10, 15. Because remember, it stops before 20. So if we wanted to include 20, we could say 21. And now we get 20. Now, just like if and while, we can use else and append that to the end of this. So for x in range 5, print x. When that is done, it will jump to the else, and we can say print done. There we go. Now, if we run this, we get 0 through 4, and then done. Now we have what's called a nested for loop. So say we have a list of programming languages, and we'll set that to a list of languages. So we'll say Java, CSS, and HTML. Then we'll set another list to say rating. And let's just give them all ratings. Say 1, 2, and 3. Now we can use a nested for loop to print out a language with each of the numbers. So we can print out Java 1, Java 2, Java 3, CSS 1, 2, 3, HTML 1, 2, 3. To do that, we can say for L in languages, and then we'll say for R in rating, and then we'll say print L, comma, R. So this is another way to print stuff out. Now, if we run this, we get, like I said, Java 1, Java 2, Java 3, and then same for CSS and HTML. And these do not have to be equal as well, so we can have 4 elements in the first list and 3 in the next, and that will work as well. And lastly, I want to talk about the keyword pass. Like we saw in other loops, if we don't want to do anything here, we can say pass. Again, if you don't want to do anything, you want to write a loop like this, but there are some cases where you might want it. So if you don't have pass, you get an error. So we just add pass, and now we can run this and nothing will happen. All right, thanks for watching, guys. In this video, just to recap, we covered if loops, covered while loops, we covered for loops, we looked at some keywords such as break and continue, and we looked at using some of these loops inside of each other, such as a if statement inside of a for or a while loop, and such. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for another Python tutorial.